Check, check, quick sound check. Can everybody hear me loud and clear? What is going on, chat? Isby, you laughing at my music? We're gonna change the music. I was actually thinking about that the other day. We've had that music for a couple months now, but I think it's time to update it. Get it in echo. Are you guys hearing an echo? Audio, video sounds good. No echo. Dakota's just trolling me in the chat. Welcome everyone to At the Buzzer, our market recap. If this is your first time here, I am Coach Jay. Normally on the other side of the screen, that is Coach Paul. He's going to be joining us in a couple of minutes here. But welcome to At the Buzzer, our market recap. If this is your first time here, goal of this segment is to review what happened in the markets for the day. We may talk about some markets that you have not traded before. Today, we're probably going to talk about some markets that you are very interested in trading. And we want to see how we could identify opportunities and manage our risk in taking those trades. If this is our first time meeting, I'm Coach Jay. I've been a Topstep performance coach since June of 2023. I've been trading for the past 13 years and in the futures markets for the past 6. Coach Paul is my co-host. He'll be here in a couple of minutes. But what a day. What a day. I know we got some earnings out. We'll talk a little bit about the earnings and what that might mean for the markets coming up. But let us know in the chat how you did today. Were you up on the day, down on the day? Maybe you stayed flat for the FOMC rate decision. How did your day end up today? For me, I was on fast markets this morning, took a short that would have played out really nice. We'll talk about it. Ended up scratching that trade, took one more trade and sat on my hands for the rest of the day. But let me know how your day went in the chat and we'll get into these markets in just a second. I'm just pulling up. So normally I have a couple of different notes for things up here with how busy the news calendar was today. I got a lot of different screens going on here. So obviously we had the rate decision. We had a Bank of Canada rate decision as well, where they decided to cut rates by 25 basis points. We had the FOMC rates decision where we decided to keep rates the same. And we had Powell's conference. We're going to get reporters asking him about, what the president has said and things like that. Gave no answers on that, which I think is exactly what he's supposed to do, right? Where the president might be putting pressure on the Fed to make decisions. Powell is going to say, I cannot be pressured to make decisions. It's the answer that he gave. So we didn't really hear too much out of that. Not much on the progress on inflation and their 2% goal, but we will see going forward. See what we got in the chat. Some traders just wanted to sit out, just listening to Powell. It's a good decision, right? Days like today can be some pretty big days, right? Where you can make a ton of money. But anytime someone's making a ton of money, someone's losing a ton of money, right? So if you don't see something that is a high probability for your setup, it's okay not to take it, especially on a day like today. I was talking to a trader in Discord that said, they haven't taken a trade in 3 days. Now, we might want to review what your criteria is for taking a trade, because if it's too restrictive, then you might be waiting forever. But if you don't see it, you don't have to trade it. Jimmy G just said it, got picked for the Lunatics. That's probably the biggest news of the day. Let's be honest. 50 new Lunatics. I'm happy to be working with a bunch of new traders from the VIP draft. 4 more opportunities to be picked on the TopstepTV VIP. So 200 more traders will be picked over the next 2 days. All right, Paul Trade got picked for the Lunatics too. Nice to hear. All right, but we do have some earnings out. Let's comment on these earnings real quick, and then we'll get to the markets. Give me 1 second over here. Move this stuff over. And let's see. So we had Microsoft, Tesla, Meta, and IBM reporting earnings right now. Let me get my screen up. So here, let me switch over to TradingView real quick. All right, you guys should be able to see TradingView charts now. A couple of different earnings. We'll go through them one by one. Let's start with Microsoft. So Microsoft, we can see the chart here. I have a 30-minute chart up on Microsoft. Pretty strong reaction, but it looks like it already recovered. Microsoft earnings per share, $3.23. Estimate was $3.12. Revenue, $69.6 billion. Nice. And estimates were $68.92 billion. Their intelligent cloud revenue is down. Azure and other cloud services look like they are up 31%, if I'm reading that correctly. Um, Microsoft AI added 13 points to Azure revenue growth versus 12 points quarter over quarter. Okay, so focusing on AI, and it is paying off for them currently. We will see it in the chart from here. Let's go on to Tesla from there. So Dakota mentioning Tesla looking like they missed on everything. We can see the reaction from Tesla here. We're looking at a 1 minute chart. What's going on, Coach Vince? Tesla earnings per share 73 cents. Estimate was 76 cents. Revenue numbers looks like they missed there as well. 25.7 billion, where the estimate was 27.26 billion. Let's see what else we got here. They got $2 billion in free cash flow. Let's see what that means for Elon if he's buying anything else with that $2 billion. And that's about it there. We do know Tesla, Microsoft, Meta, Mag 7 stocks. We have Meta here as well. Let me see if I got the numbers on Meta yet. I'm not seeing Meta numbers out yet, so let's go over to IBM, which look at this reaction in IBM. It's funny, yesterday we were talking about, whether IBM could be considered one of these bigger movers here. Shout out to all the IBM investors because that's the biggest move that we see from a reaction so far. IBM up almost $30 after their reaction. And let's read these numbers here. What do we got for IBM? So far, what I'm seeing is earnings per share came out at 91 cents. Estimate was 88 cents. Looks like their revenue numbers were pretty much in line, 17.5 billion. Estimate was 17.54 billion. Sometimes it's these sleeper companies. I was talking to Dakota the other day, and one of the best trades I made so far this year was buying CVS. And it sounds crazy with all the, high profile tech names that we can trade, but a chart is a chart and opportunity is opportunity. But we will see how these this is TradingView that I'm looking at here. We'll see how some of these big tech names. We have more out tomorrow. Apple, Intel report tomorrow. I don't think I see anything else outside of that. So Apple, Intel, Visa report tomorrow, and I think some of the other big Mag 7 names are going to be next week. Coach Hoop says fairly muted so far. I agree with you. Pretty quiet so far. Give me 1 second here, guys. All right, pretty quiet so far. Other big news that I did kind of glance over, and it was some of the. We got Coach Paul here. That was the big news. What's going on, Coach? Having fun.
How do I sound?
You sound good. You sound good over here. Let us know if you can hear Coach Paul in the chat, and we'll keep it going.
All right.
And
what is that rocket?
That is IBM, Coach. IBM. Off of that earning report. $30 move. Let's see if it holds. You don't really hear too many people talk about IBM, but that is a massive move.
Yeah, wow. The original tech.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Jack Patrick saying OpenAI called out DeepSeek for allegedly stealing their models. That's not surprising, right? We're going to see a couple more headlines come out of there. One of the headlines that we did glance over, and I think is really important, and we'll talk about volume and stuff like that once we get into the charts. But Trump looking at putting a cap on the sales of Nvidia in China. That's big news, right? That surprisingly, and gotta love our president. Let me make the biggest news of the day. We know we have the rate decision. We know we have all these earnings. I'm actually going to do it the biggest and say that we are going to limit how much we sell Nvidia products in China. Which, when we look at the volume, the market had the biggest reaction to that today. Anything else you got on the news front, Coach? Do we want to get into the markets?
Let's get into the markets. I will tell you this: I was just experiencing it. The volatility is wicked right now.
Yes, it is.
I was hedging with some 30 delta calls. 30 delta calls are 1/3 of the movement of the S&P, and there was a 5 handle difference between the bid and offer.
Oh wow.
So when you see something like IBM up $30,
Yeah.
that's after market, especially in single stocks. There's no the market makers put their hands down. We used to call it, or they scale back. Um, and we're seeing it. So I think that's going to continue. Volatility is, well, we expected it, but when you witness it like that, they're not taking on much risk. So to do that, they widen their bid and offers. And if volume comes in, someone was stuck. I'd imagine someone was stuck short IBM. They couldn't wait till tomorrow's open.
Hmm.
So I don't. Well, I- if you put yourself in a position to trade large amounts of stock in the aftermarket in the stocks, your the liquidity is probably less than 10% of what it would be in a day.
100%.
So
Yeah, just one more thing. Also, we just said that Tesla pretty much missed on everything. This here is a perfect example of the markets don't really have to make sense. Sturdy gentleman, you're right. That is Coach Paul that we have here. Thank you for joining us, Coach Paul. Tesla just missed on everything, right? You would think that means that it's going to go down, right? Where the initial reaction we missed, sell off, and now Tesla's trading back above $400 here. So I think it's really important, and we'll talk about it all the time, to lean on the technicals. These fundamental factors, right? How companies are doing their earnings and things like that, are going to have effects on the equity markets that we trade every day. But I think what's more important is to see how the market responds and then trade that afterwards. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into the charts. Uh, and Linus Rain says, check your tweets. Check my tweets? Or are you talking about Trump tweets? Trump
or are
tweets,
we
I think you're
talking
talking
about?
about.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Or the bird outside the window,
Right.
something.
Uh, Elon's tweets. There we go. Okay. We will check Elon's tweets after this, but let's get into these markets. I'm going to switch back over to Topstep X and let's take a look at what we have. So there are 35 different markets we can trade with Topstep accounts, not just the equity markets. We like to focus on what the biggest percentage movers of the day were. And let's take a look to the downside today. We had RBOB gasoline futures down 0.56%. Crude oil down 1.08%. And I'm sorry I let you down, Coach Hoop, but cattle, our biggest percentage mover to the downside at 1.22%. I was talking big game yesterday and I said, I'm going to trade cattle on Topstep TV. And it looked like a great long to start. I'm actually happy I didn't take the trade because I was going to buy it. And then we sold off, 1.25%. But I dropped the ball, chat. I'm sorry, Coach Hoop, I let you down. But if anyone caught that trade, Coach Hoop, of course, Coach Hoop caught it. He was short, so somebody had to do it. Uh,
Well, next time you're on there, look for a buy.
there we go. Uh, yeah, Bobby, you were telling me all day, but by the time you were telling me the market was in a consolidation, and I'm not going to trade consolidated market. But it was the right trade for sure. To the upside, we had soybean meal up 2.62%, wheat futures up 2.84%, and micro Bitcoin after Mr. Powell spoke about pretty much being favorable to Bitcoin and working with banks that are working with customers that are invested in crypto. Uh, Bitcoin markets like that, up 2.92% for our biggest percentage mover to the upside. To talk about our big four here, we already talked about crude oil down 1.1%. The S&P is down 0.35%. What else do we got here? Nasdaq, where are you? We have gold up 0.13%, and the Nasdaq, that's why I couldn't find you because you didn't do anything. Nasdaq unchanged 0.02% to round out our big four. I have a S&P chart up here, coach. We'll go out to the 30-minute chart, and I have a couple of lines on these charts that I want to talk about. as we
Mhm.
go through this. But what are you seeing on the? It's probably the most
I'm seeing
muted
a
FOMC day we've had in a long time, Coach.
yeah. Well, the expectation was no change.
Right.
We've already had a major disruption um, from Monday with the news of DeepSeek. Is it DeepSeek?
DeepSeek.
What?
Yep.
Yeah. Um, that heightened volatility. Um, what was the last reading expectation was like 99.8% was going to be unchanged.
Right.
Made me wonder if the Fed itself was trading that. And why wouldn't they? So, and it came out that way. And
Yep.
and Jerome Powell or any Fed chief worth their weight is not going to say anything crazy in the after. And they're baiting him and baiting him. When I watch
Oh
that,
yeah.
he's
Yeah.
he's very good. He's a
True
banker's
professional.
banker. It's like he doesn't get upset. So it came out. He didn't say that. No, nothing shocking came out as expected, and you could see it in the interest rate futures too. We won't go there right now, but very much unchanged. Um, which is actually not surprising.
Yeah.
Um, and you could see it in that market that was zigzagging. That I think tomorrow tells the tale. After all this news, I'm still kind of friendly to it,
Yep.
although I can't get long yet because it's not over the 200. But I think it can gain some steam. We, um, but you can tell. Here's a class example. Market makers are going to widen their bids and offers
Mm.
as a whole. So, and you can see it in the book. The closer it comes, they're there to make markets, but they don't have to put up the size.
Right.
And we saw that now. I believe is there any shock? I mean, Tesla comes in, it misses on everything, and we're what? We kind of rallied. Um, so look at that, higher than yesterday's low. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Making higher lows. This market is still bullish, right? 3 days this week, all higher lows. If we look at a daily time frame, this looks like a pretty bullish chart here. After this sell off, we held 50% of this sell off candle. That was yesterday. Yeah, it looks bullish out of all the news that we had, and there's still more news to come. Um, that being said, some of it unplanned news, right? A tweet, a comment can affect these markets, uh, but they're meant to go up, and they're still going up, maybe slowly, but still going up right now. Um, I have a couple of lines marked off on these charts, and you were speaking about the size that gets traded out there, Coach. We were talking about it on Top Step TV. I did have a short on, and I'll talk about the trades that I took today. Uh, but we saw some thousand lots getting filled in the S&Ps, and if you watch the S&P, you watch the order flow, you know a thousand lot is decent size, right? You don't see it all the time. And we had four different thousand lots that we saw get filled today. There might have been more. I just marked out these prices. The first one was 60.87. Below that, 60.79. Below that one, 60.77. And then below that one, 60.55. These all were on the bid, so passive buyers sitting there with at least 1,000 contracts, getting filled by market order sells, and we can kind of see, this first one, this 60.87 happened within the first half an hour of the market being open through the FOMC, whatever it was, you know, unchanged decision. Uh, on the rally into the close on the day, that's exactly where we rejected, right? This is personally why I watch order flow all the time. Knowing where bigger market participants execute their orders is important to me. We talk about price, and price, like you said, Coach, is an advertisement. if the S&Ps were trading at 20,000, um, they're still going to move the same way, right? Market participants are still going to need to execute orders, whether it's trading at 20,000 or it's trading at 6,100. But the fact that they executed orders at this 60.87 price, Andre even called it out on Topstep TV, 60.79 and the orders, right? Not a flat number, not 60.80, not 60.79 evens, 79 and the orders. Why put it there? Interesting spot, but whatever it was, they wanted to trade 1,000 contracts there, right? So I don't know what their intentions are, but I can say, hey, someone executed a ton of size here. It's important for me to look at that, right? Look at the short off of this 60.87 level. Um, Now, these were passive bids. Are they building a position for when the S&Ps eventually make new all-time highs? Maybe. Are they getting out of shorts? Who knows? If I
Are
had
they
to,
hedging against an option position?
who knows? Who knows? But they were there. They were there. They were on the buy side. And when the market traded back to their position, right? I just like to put myself in their shoes, right? Probably some pretty expensive shoes if you're trading 1,000 lots on the S&Ps. But what happens when the market gets back up to their prices, right? Are they ready to make money now, or are they still building a position? We also have to think that there's a market participant on the other side of this trade, right? Somebody had to sell to them, right? So are they net short? Are they covering that position? They did get somebody's net short at 60.87 potentially, right? This is all hypothetical. I'm just going with the assumption that whoever sold to them was selling to open a position. Again, we don't know, but at some point that position was 40 points in the profit. Is that person still in the market? Are they out of it now? What happens at the 60.87 level? These levels are not going to come off my charts until they're no longer relevant, right? Once we start to see 60.87 act as a support and push above, then I'm thinking, okay, whoever passively bought there is now in the money, and go from there. Um, those 1,000 lot levels, Donald, 60.87, 60.79 in the orders, 60.77, and 60.55. Why are you laughing, coach?
The orders.
Yeah,
Like you pointed it out as the no, no, no. It's the orders, not
right.
80.
Why put it at 75? Yeah, it's a weird spot. Weird spot to put it, but whatever it was, Chris Briggs says that was me still holding. Chris, you're a little underwater right now, but I'm sure you're not sweating
Yeah.
it.
And it makes it very interesting that those were 1,000 lots scattered. And now we talk about the other side. And this is where market makers and the public come in. Yeah,
Yeah,
those orders come from institutions, and that could be a big institution wants to buy a big parcel of stocks. I want to get. It's still the end of. By the way, it's the end of January.
hmm,
The, the new administration's in. There's still allocation to be had, I'd imagine. Like, hey, I need to buy $2 billion worth of stock. Hey, Mr. Goldman, we're going to swap you. And that order, we want cash. Give us a price now. We don't want the risk of execution. We'll give you a head start on it.
hmm,
We'll give you a haircut of 10%. Whatever it is. It might be too much. Whatever. We're going to
right.
give you a head start. You just have to get it done. And we don't want to deal with anything else. Okay. That happens. Um, this to me has that kind of DNA. Like
Okay.
it, it,
The,
that's
the deal was made prior to it.
Yeah, that's not Joe Big Trader buying 5,000 today or 4,000.
Right.
Do the math on the margin.
It's a huge position.
It's $1 billion margin.
Yep.
It, anyway, maybe a little less, whatever it is. That was very interesting because it came in those tranches. Um, or it could be, interestingly, it could be a big option.
Could be. Yeah, it definitely could
It's,
be. Oh wow, look at
whoa,
this.
something came out.
Something just happened. Let's
Which
see
one
what
came
that
out?
might have been. The only one we didn't get numbers from was. Huh, I thought we got the numbers for all of them. I don't know what Meta. Oh, Meta was the one we were waiting for. Okay, So Meta's, I don't see the numbers yet, but that had to just be Meta's earnings. Let me pull up TradingView real quick and see what just happened there. But here we go, right? Mag 7 companies affecting how these equity markets trade. And this is why it's, it may be important to pay attention to them. Give me 1 second. I'll bring up the Meta chart real quick. Uh, let's see here. There you go. That's what that was. Meta's earnings must have just came out, dropped about $30 there. Not seeing the numbers yet. Okay, here we go. Look at this. Earnings per share, $8.02. Estimate, $6.78. So that's a beat. Pretty big one. Look at the reaction. Uh,
Okay, once again, let's look at that volume. It moved $30. Now let's look at the same selling volume during the day. Would it move $2, $3?
right. Thin
Okay,
books.
and now here we go. This is a beautiful buy.
Yep.
I'm just don't trade it. I've been there.
Yep.
I have two new pairs of eyes. I'm getting the last pair ripped out on these things. I don't. You're not here. We are not here as day trading speculators to play this game.
Yep.
You just you can get a run over. So
100%. What I'm gonna
wow,
do here is, if I'm looking at Meta, exactly what you just saw me do, right? Here's the reaction. Here's where all that volume came in. And we know that this is a market changing event for Meta, right? So if I was a Meta trader, okay, let's attach VWAP to there and see how the market responds since they reported earnings, right? And then I'll trade the flow from there. Uh, to me, there's really no way you can guess this, right? If you had puts going into it, oh, Meta's going to go down. I've been here before. I'm going to buy some puts, uh, and then I'm really happy for maybe 30 seconds, and then the market pops right back up, and I'm like, "What the f just happened? I can't get out of the trade until tomorrow." It's just a lot of unnecessary drama. Um, but still interesting because it is going to move the markets, right? So we will see once volume is able to come back into the markets tomorrow and continue to actively trade, how the market responds. We saw the reaction in the S&Ps, right, where we did have that sell-off. Meta is one of those Mag 7 companies and is going to affect the overall indices. So we need to pay attention to it. But that's all it is to me. It's just more information. Am I a zero DTE trader? Every once in a while, I'll place a zero DTE trade, but it's probably less than 10 a year. Probably less than 10 a year.
me zero. I trade futures.
That right. That is zero DTE if you're closing them.
Um,
Right. 100%.
um, that's all I have to say. I can see the temptation.
Yep.
Um, but what
Why?
efficiencies of margin in futures, and also the ability to
To be able to
manage your
get
risk.
out when you want.
This is like ZT. This is 0 day options right there. I
100%.
feel like it's pure gamma all the time. And believe me, I love gamma, but I can get gamma from trading futures.
Right.
But when I was in options for a very long time. I still trade options for hedging purposes on my swing trading. Um, one of the biggest things come. It's 100 deltas if you're in futures. That would, like option traders could freak out. "Oh, everything moves so fast." Yeah, because I don't need a 0 day option if I'm trading futures. I could trade micros. Um, I don't have to worry about that expiration or being missing missing by a couple ticks. So I'll get off my soapbox now. I don't trade them.
All right, let's go through the Meta earnings. We already talked about earnings per share, $8.02. Estimate was $6.78. Revenue, 48.39 billion. Estimate was 46.98 billion. Operating income, 23.37 billion. Estimate was 20 billion. Uh, from their family of apps, their revenue is 47.3 billion. Estimate was 46. We know all the apps that Meta owns. Um, and let's see. So for all these companies, they're all going to have earnings calls, give guidance for the future and things like that. So that might affect price going forward. We saw what the knee jerk reaction was. And Kevin K says he doesn't believe me. I probably trade more than 10 zero DTEs a year. It might be less. It honestly, it might be less. Um, but let's go back to the charts. We'll go back here. Very consolidated day, choppy day, what we kind of expected going into FOMC. I'll say what I didn't expect was us to stay in this range after the rate decision. But like you said, Coach, as expected, no change, no change in the markets either. Um, let's see, we got some chop here. I was on fast markets this morning looking for a sell. I'm gonna have to put those lines back on my chart, but we'll do that later. Uh, looking for a sell, and it was the right idea. It just took a little long, right? Chat. There was a bunch of people in the chat saying, "Jay, hold on to that trade. You have a good idea here." It almost actually stopped me out. I got two VWAPs
It
on this
was
chart. Go ahead, Coach.
yeah, 2 ATR stop was perfect. It was with
Man,
look at 2 ticks, 1 tick. It was like
so
the perfect placement.
you
I
see
was
this?
watching that.
You see this candle right here? Whatever
Yeah.
this was at this candle saved me on that trade. I don't know who decided to trade that volume at 7:06 Central Time, but thank you. If you're listening, thank you. That's where my stop was. 50% of their candle right there. We can see we got to 60.91 and a quarter. My stop was 60.91 and a half. If they didn't do this, I would have gotten stopped out of the trade. Uh, and I could have held on to it. I started getting short around 77s, building into a short with micros all the way up to VWAP from the full session. And it was the right idea. I'll tell you why I cut that trade. And it's because it took almost 3 hours to give me any real favorable price action away from my entry. By the time I finished averaging in, my average was at 60.85. And that's that. I'll make this a different color. We'll put this as blue. My average was here at 60.85, and we did get under it, and we can actually see it was a pretty good average where we were rejecting, and we had that 60.87 order that was right above it. But it took 3 hours to give me any kind of favorable price action. I have no problem holding a trade that actually moves, but when it sits in a consolidation, for me, it feels a lot more like a 50-50. And I would just much rather not put risk behind a 50-50 trade, right? Was I wrong? 100%, right? I had a trade that went 30 points in my favor if I held on to it. But for the way I have to manage trades for my system to work, that's a trade that I have to cut no matter what. You were going to say something, Coach.
Well, I don't did you make a mistake? I think it's a relative statement there.
Yep.
Like you said, it wasn't gaining any traction.
Right.
It is FOMC day. Yeah, resulting, but for those of people, oh, well, look, it would have worked out if you stayed in. That's resulting.
Right.
But part of that is, and I'm noticing these breakout trades, that broke out late, and it
Hmm.
wasn't really following through,
Yep.
and it was choppy. How long do you want to hold it? Could you put your stop down to unchanged? Maybe, just going through it, yeah.
Right.
Um, but not necessarily a bad decision. By the way, if you've ever been on Top Step TV, there's distractions.
100%.
Um, so
And
yeah, you could have
I
held it.
really liked the trade. So what I also want to point out is what ultimately brought us down was uncertainty. No one knew that Trump was going to say that about Nvidia, and that's the candle that brought us down out of that range. So, and we talked about repeatable patterns. I can't repeatedly hope that Trump is going to say something that affects the markets in my favor. I can't do that, right? What do I even base that on? I don't have his number. I wish I did, because whoever does is probably making some pretty good money in these markets right now. But I can't plan for this. What I can do, and I'll show you the Nasdaq trade that I did take. I can plan for, and for what fits my strategy, I can plan to trade this candle. And that's what I ultimately did. But yeah, I had to cut that trade. There was nothing at this point saying that the markets were going to definitively do anything. So I had to cut it. Uh, Anything else you got on the
How
S&Ps, coach? I'm
much
going to go over to the
how
Nasdaq.
much how much did you lose on that
I made
decision?
$3.85,
Okay. Scratch is a win. When you
100%.
can take risk and scratch it, it's a win. But
Yep.
next time, hold on.
I'm only gonna hold if I know it's a winner. All right, I'll hold on to the winners for next time for sure.
Please do that. Yeah.
Juan Wick says trade London when Trump isn't speaking. I mean, yeah, that could be an option. We have seen some pretty nice price action during London. You got to sleep at some point, right? And that might
Until he
be.
wakes up in the middle of the night.
Actually, you know what? I feel like sending out a tweet or scheduled tweets, right? That would be a good one. That's how you really get them. But I do want to switch over
That's
to the Nasdaq because I did take a trade long in the Nasdaq off of a repeatable pattern. Now here is the Nasdaq price action, and it's funny if I actually traded the Nasdaq today instead of the S&Ps, I probably held on to that short, right? Because volume left the range in the Nasdaq and looked a little bit more convincing, right? So it's knowing
yeah.
the markets that you go ahead, coach.
It was weaker.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah.
Wow.
Definitely
Look
weaker
at that
today.
volume spike. Wow.
This
Is
is
that a
Trump.
J trade?
Yeah, and I took it. I took this one for sure. So this is
That's like a Hall of Fame J trade.
100%. This here, and if you want to know what Coach Paul is talking about as far as the J trade goes, we said it 2 days ago. We haven't got one in a little while. The markets heard us and gave us a bunch of them. But basically, we're looking for this volume exhaustion. Again, this is unplanned volume. Look at it compared to everything else for the rest of the day. The volume on Trump saying that he was going to limit the amount of sales of Nvidia in China was higher than the market open and higher than FOMC. We don't see that often at all.
No.
So what I did was mark out this candle. Right, I chose both of these on the 3 minute chart because it was two consistent volume candles. But then the first thing my brain is going to go to is how sustainable is this volume, right? This is a knee jerk reaction to a headline, and the markets have to digest that headline. If they digest the headline and say, hey, you know what, that's bad news, let's keep selling off, then this picture looks a little bit different. So, what I'm going to do, like I would do with anything else, is attach VWAP to that candle. Market, tell me how you respond to this. And immediately after we see the volume start to die out, that VWAP is a flat line. Once we start to hold 50% of this as a support and that VWAP starts to tick up, I took a trade long here. I think I got long at 445. And my target is not going to be a whole lot, right? We have anchored VWAP from the New York session right here, this yellow line. Getting in at 445, my target conservatively is going to be the high of this candle where all the selling came in just to fill that imbalance, right? So long at 445, target here, that's a 50-point trade. That was the trade of the day for me. Didn't do anything else. Called it a day from there. Um, and this is what I mean by looking for a repeatable pattern and trading that. This one here in the S&Ps that we were talking about earlier, that might fit someone's playbook. And if it does, take that trade every single time it sets up because you know the probabilities of it. This trade here to me is an 80% probability. And if it fails the first time, I probably take it again, right? Where I'm not looking for a whole lot, but I know this fits my playbook, so I have to take that, right? And we can see, the market respected this volume, highest volume candle of the day, which ended up being the low for the day. Also, we hold 50% of this. If I see this, I'm taking that trade every single time, right? And this is repeatable. This can happen in any market, and this is what I want to lean on for my trading decisions because this does not feel like a 50-50, right? This feels like and there's nothing saying that this trade is going to be profitable, right? The outcome is still 50-50, right? It's either going to be a winning or a losing trade, but when I playbook it, right, and I draw out that playbook, this to a high probability gives me favorable results. So if I have to be patient and wait for that to happen, that's what I'm going to do for the day.
This reminds me when you said it. The J trade reminds me of when I was in the bond room or any other pit, but especially in the bond room because there were thousands of traders, and it was like if something like that the volume in the room would equal the volume, I would say, of the activity. So with that volume, the room would be very, very loud. Because why? There is trading taking place. And then I was in the bond options and I could just hear it. I could hear the bond pit. It was eerie. Just like this, it would just all of a sudden get silent. Decibel would go down 90%. And then I would just fade it.
Interesting.
Just on the one lot, just fade it. And why? Because whatever happened, whatever orders on that break got filled, selling was over. And this J trade, if you look at a volume spike like that and replace the volume or the noise in the trading pit with volume spikes like that, it's very similar. And that's why I liked when you break that high of the bottom candle,
Yep. Yeah, that's go time.
it's go time. It's over.
Yeah.
And I think you can get two ATRs consistently, even one ATR, because this that to me this is a modern scalp
Yeah. Yep.
because you're not no one's scalping points here. 1 point, it just moves too fast. But
Right.
that's a classic example that goes into the J Trade Hall of Fame.
Thanks, coach. I really do like, and we have some traders calling some things out here that I really like to see. This spike apparently went down to the initial balance high from Monday. I actually just marked it off here. This is 50% of yesterday's range. Um, some of these things, right, they just continue to play out over and over. And when they present opportunities, right, where I was actually looking at 50% of the S&P's range for a potential trade, right? S&P's daily range for a potential trade, and it didn't set up, right? 50% of S&P's trade was from yesterday was 60.62. And if we look at 60.62, there was no, so that volume event went right through 60.62. So it can't be a blind buy here, right? But it is showing me that yes, there is some volume that's getting traded around here, and it may be a potential area to trade. But I still need the trigger of this volume coming in for me to take that setup. Now, again, that's just for my playbook for the trades that I take, and I know some traders asked for me to share that a little bit more. But I might wait 3 hours for this trade because if I didn't manage that, I still manage that Nasdaq trade a little tight. That's what I want to wait for. I'll say that. Anything else on the equities, coach? Or any
No,
questions we want to get through here?
um, no, I'm good.
All right, I got one question from Dan Trader here. For a J trade, does the above average volume candle need to be of a certain size, like 2x or something? So Dan, I don't measure it specifically. I just want to see something that is an anomaly, right? So two things that I'm looking for here, especially if I'm taking this as a reversal. I want to see the volume come in first, right? And this candle, as soon as I see this kind of spike, I'm going to let 3 minute candle close, right? So I'm never taking a trade within this 3 minute candle. But I noticed a couple of things. Okay, it's above the average, it's above anything else that we've seen recently. And then I'm going to compare that candle to what we did in the open, right? Because now this has the potential to be where either the low or the high is for the day, right? So I don't measure it specifically based on the average, but it does need to be somewhat significantly over that average, and it sticks out, right? Like if you had no idea how to trade volume, and I said, hey, just point out a candle that sticks out here, your eyes are automatically going to go to that one, and that's what I'm looking for, right? So I try to identify it more in real time, but it is just a feel. But you can also just wait until the candle closes to get more information. Go ahead, coach.
I would also, one thing is, if you see a candle like that where the volume is larger than the opening,
Hmm.
that you pay attention. You have the potential right there.
Yep.
Why? Because the open and the close has the most volume.
Yes.
It's
All the time.
and when you see it's an anomaly, right? To have it in the middle of the day, I thought that the rate cut came out. I'm like, oh, I
Somebody got
thought
the
it was
information early.
it was like noon Central Time. I'm like, oh, wait, I thought it came out at 1.
Right.
Um, so if I didn't know that, looking at that, that's an anomaly. It's larger than the open. It's if we're playing poker, it's new money in the pot, and you're sitting on three of a kind. I think just like it's okay. If this selling fails, I have a high probability, not not a sure thing, a high probability that we're going to rip higher or lower depending on the candle. I just measure it out at 2 ATRs or 2 to 1, whatever it is.
Yep.
Um, versus that last high value, that's the close.
Yeah. This is the close, right?
You
So
know,
more often than not, we're gonna ignore that one.
it's interesting. Let's look at that high volume on the buy side. Was that off of
This one here.
yeah,
This was some Powell comments, but then again, same setup. We get the high volume, attach a VWAP to it. Coach, what have we said about VWAP and the range, right? If it's flat and it doesn't leave the range bound market. Shorting at the highs, buying at the lows unless that volume said something different.
yeah.
Man, I really love this pattern.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, we used to cover on Discord all the time,
Yep,
but it's so great trade.
good stuff.
What's next?
Shout out
Crude?
to Anne Marie and D in the chat. Thank you for joining us, and shout out to the new Chameleonaires, D's VIP team. 50 new traders added to the VIPs as well. Let's look at I got gold up here, Coach, and then we'll
All
go to
right.
crude from there. Wow, why do I have gold up here? Didn't do much of
Because you
anything.
can. No, surprisingly. Um,
What's this white line down here though?
it held. Well, it settled below it, popped right back. Um, wow. Still bullish. But tough day. Well, unless you're a market maker or a reversion. So, but this happened Asia, Europe, and US. That
Yep,
same pattern.
same pattern.
Um, still held the once it settled below the 200. Look at that buying. Like there, it settled below right there.
Yep, right here.
Immediately found buying to take it right back. That's tough trading.
Yep,
That's a half an hour chart. I don't. Let's look at a shorter term. Those are days where I'm glad I don't. I limit my losses in my account. Wow, it's the same thing.
yeah. This was right decision time. Here is 1 p.m. Central Time. We get
Uh-huh.
consolidation, and then he starts talking, and we get But that's tough there.
So if you carved out a piece in the gold, good on you. If you lost well, good on you. Like here, these are the markets. If like we talk about losers and winners, if that's your focus, is you're going to get spun around to trying to just make money, just have winners. Not possible if you focus on losing well and letting your winners come. You're not overly emotional on either side. You could have a losing day and traded well.
Yep, 100%. I just framed out that highest volume candle in gold on the 3 minute chart, just to kind of look at that as well. I don't know what this volume spike was. This was at 8:39 Central Time. Uh, that's not a
Did it
time
make
that
a new high after that?
it did not.
So it's not a J trade because it has to break that high at the least.
Yep, but the market
So
respecting that volume. Once VWAP
Yes,
leaves,
it did.
yeah, this is a tough trade though. It wasn't a lot of it wasn't a lot of meat on the bone in gold today. Um, but a market that did move kind of nicely, Coach. I think you said you took this one. Crude oil did it again.
Well, and who sold it again? D D.
Yeah,
By the way,
our
London,
friends in London.
they control the energy market right now, or at least the crude. It all started there. We had that spike was last from yesterday's close, and look at that. Um, when I woke up, it was I sold it at 8 o'clock. Um,
Okay,
and I
still
sold it
somewhere up here.
with puts. Yeah,
Nice.
only because the 200 moving average was above it. I'm a little. I get to do options now. If I had to do if futures, I could have done micros
Right.
or minis. Um, but still, this is a down. This is a. Is this established as a trend? Yeah, it is. Um, so let's look at the 8 o'clock U.S. Open.
U.S. Open. Let's take a look. It's right around. D said she caught a long right off of here. Yeah, that's a nice trade too. All right, here is. Let me
Uh,
take these moving averages off for a second. Here is the 8 o'clock open. We had inventories out today too. Crude inventories came
yeah.
out today. There you go.
All right. Never left the range. Price did.
Yeah.
But still in a trend. Um, did it give you some heat? Oh heck yeah! As a matter of fact, there's a losing trade.
Oh yeah, 100%. Definitely
Um,
losing trade there.
2 ATR loss. You want to try it again? Yeah. But the low on in crude in a non um combined futures,
Mhm.
um, which means it only measures the March contract. It doesn't attach any expired. Um, that was the low. What was that, 72.21 or something like that?
Yeah,
Was it?
72.33 was the low, but yeah.
Yeah, it was. That was the moving average, the 200 today moving average. It bounced nicely.
Probably look a little different on yours with the data that you have, but yeah,
Yeah,
whatever was
that's why
down there, it bounced.
that's a continuation chart there.
Right.
Because crude trades contracts 3-4 years out. There's no need. Actually, I like it. It's pure data that because it's not rolled over, and every
Mm.
rollover, especially in monthly rollovers, it's the longer term data it gets different. Um,
Mm.
because every roll could be 5 cents, 2 cents, a dime, 20 cents, and it adds up over time. So with natural gas, crude, anything that expires month to month, Bitcoin, little less Bitcoin because it hasn't been trading that long. Like the beginning of the data for this futures contract, March crude, goes back years.
Hmm.
So it's trading. If you would, right now, the March of 2028 is trading. Now it's not doing great volume, but it's
It's
trading.
still out there.
There is no March of 2028 in financials. So the data over time on a monthly expiration cycle, you don't have to have a continuation. If I've confused you, I apologize.
Nope,
Anyone in the
I'm with you.
audience.
I'm with you.
But
Trade the front month contract, look at the most recent data because that's going to be the most important,
yeah,
especially when you're looking at things like moving averages and things like that.
Now, did it rally after the close? What is that spike? Is this
This
a 3-minute?
is yeah, so this is the close right here, and then this spike here is 12 p.m. Central. I don't know what happened there, but this is that same trade in the
A
Nasdaq.
tweet.
Probably a tweet.
Yeah, I mean, it was the same time.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, right around that same time.
Is that a J trade? I believe it is.
I believe so.
Look at that volume.
Yep.
And higher probably than the open.
Yep. Yep. Higher
Okay.
volume than the open.
That's really an exhaustion selling. All
So
the king's horses and all the king's men sold it in the hole. And once they stopped selling it, see, here's one. But what?
they
It didn't
continued.
break that high. It didn't continue. You had next time you had buying, it couldn't take that out. This
So
time it took it out.
this actually answers a good question from a great filibuster. Let me make sure I go back and read the question. During these crazy market moves, does volume reflect it? Can you tell if the direction is sustainable or not by using volume? I'm gonna say yes. I'll also say that that probably uh, could be its own class in general because it's really paying attention to these volume patterns, right? I'll give you a quick one here, right? We talked about in that NASDAQ trade the sustainability of that volume, where we had a spike in volume that was probably 7 times the average that was trading. Oh, okay, I got you, Tim Brown. A spike in volume that was probably 7 times the average, right? So automatically my brain just goes to, is that sustainable or not? And then I'm going to look at the candles to see it, right? There's a couple of, and the reason I use all these for visual cues, attach VWAP to where that high volume is, and it's going to tell you. We can see it in the volume candles, right, where we get above average, then another one consistently above average, another one above average as well. Even though this closes, right, I almost want to say don't pay attention to the color of these candles because we know if you're looking at delta information, it might be a little misleading, right? Sellers could be stronger in this candle, although it closed higher. But you do want to pay attention here. Consistent volume, consistent. We get a little dip, but that's okay. Can it sustain consistently above the average? Consistently above the average. What is the market doing? It's going lower, right? We can see it in VWAP. We can see it in this volume pattern, right? Two words: waxing and waning. Right. This is waxing. Right. Volume is continuing to add here. Continuing to add here. Let's look at the difference in this trade.
Coach Miyagi.
uh, so filibuster, you see it, right? So now let's look at this one. Huge volume spike, 4 times the average. First question you ask, is that sustainable? What happens? It's at the average. What is price doing? It's not moving lower. It's staying within this price. What is VWAP doing? It's a flat line. Another candle at the average, price is now moving higher. So what I'm thinking is somebody sold here. Price is not moving in their favor. What do you do when you sell something and price doesn't go your way? You got to buy it, right? Another one above average, price is moving higher and then volume just dies. If I'm in a short here and I'm looking at this volume, my question is what is the likelihood that the next time a volume spike is going to come in, is that volume going to be to the downside? This is where I would cut a trade because it feels like a 50-50 at this point. Volume could do whatever the hell it wants at this point. It could come in and sell, it could come in and buy, but I don't know. Here, if I'm in this short, I'm okay holding it because we get sustained volume, price is moving lower, there's continuation here. All right. And this one on this fade, even on this fade, right? You could take this trade. But the reason I would take, if I took this long here at 50% of this candle, and it's the same thing, I'll go back to the NASDAQ for a second, right? Remember where I said my price target was in the NASDAQ off this trade, right? Here's the high volume. Price target conservatively has to be where? Has to be the high of this candle. Because unless we see volume start to get in above that average at these highs, what's going to happen? I don't know, 50-50. The market might fill this imbalance, which it did, but at that point, we don't. What happens to volume? It starts waning, right? What happens to price? It comes off. So There
Does the
really are.
wax come off, coach?
Uh, there are patterns in volume that I again, it could be a class in its own. The only classes I've ever paid for trading, the answer to everything was volume. And it was really reading volume patterns and trying to make an assumption about what the market was going to do. Um, and that's it from there. We are at time. Coach, you got any other markets we want to
Oh,
talk about before we go?
corn.
Oh yeah, call of the year. Call of the year. I think so.
Um, and was the best trade of the day. And the stuff I was looking at. Um, Starting last night,
Let's go to a
can put that
30-minute.
200 moving average there.
What the fuck, man? Wow,
You know, you tell me, coach.
it's going
It's
up.
it's going up. Um,
Here's last night's
buy the
open.
dips. Last night's open.
Jesus Christ.
Yes, he was long too. And don't be on the other side. um, Urgency right through to the open where he got even more urgency. Um, that's a really big move for corn.
Yeah,
I think it was
what
12
this is
cents.
2.5%.
Yeah. But was I mean, look at it, never got below. We're in a bull market. We had a dip. We got above the 200 moving average on the 30-minute. Then we look for buyers. Buyers reflecting in VWAP.
Yeah, nonstop. And then the market opens, this morning and just right away. Let's go down to a 3-minute chart and take a look at what that looks like. Jeez, wow. And I was trying to find a trade in the S&Ps, right? So this is what I was
I
talking
did
about on.
send you a message. You were too busy.
I didn't. I
Corn.
missed it. Just text
Well,
me next time. Text me
all
next time.
right.
I'll look at it. But yeah. So this is what we were talking about in fast markets, coach. This trade setup, I don't care what it could be, construction paper market. I want to trade this if it's doing this because it's an opportunity to make money, right? Where we were trying to force a trade for the most part, at least based on my setups, I was trying to force a trade in the S&Ps that, although it happened, it took 4 hours to happen. I could have traded corn for 30 minutes and made more money in that trade. This is what I want to look for. It's a
Yeah,
repeatable setup.
you got it. It could be wax for all we know. It's going to move. There is urgency. Um, but we looked at yesterday. It set up perfectly on the break, but yeah, the corn has been probably, I would say, the most efficient
Yep.
market.
Yeah. 100%.
And, and you don't in corn, you don't have a lot of retail.
Speculation.
I don't hear. I mean, it's except for corn coin. Um, it's it's a commercial market. Users, it's dominated by users, end users and producers. So that was just
Coach, I got to
you
give it
know,
to you, man. That was a great call. At the end of 2024, I asked what was on your scouting report going into 2025. You said corn. It is up, and I think this is potentially just the start of the move. It's up 10% with almost no drawdown from that point. It's a great call, man.
yeah. Well, it was a good market.
And I love the
Um,
fact that I know you're in it also. So more than just being a great call, you're making money from it too, which is what we have to do in this game.
um, yeah. Well, here I'm a technician through and through.
Hmm.
If we just take out all the noise, what is a market for? It's a place for buyers and sellers to meet.
Yep.
One is going, there's three phases: up, down, or sideways. And then, when when your mindset is there, you can find like imbalances. It, so that one I could, it was, well, it was great call. It was a great trade. Why? Because the tech, the technicals that I watched. So in corn, wow, I didn't even realize it's almost up to last year's highs.
Oh wow.
Um,
So we got a comment here from Gigi DeMonico. How do you size your positions in corn? If you are going to trade a market that you have not traded before, start with a one lot on a practice account. Don't set the expectations of making a ton of money from these markets, um, especially if you have not traded before. Start small. Start with a one lot. See how the market moves. D just said in the chat that she doesn't trade corn because it's too slow. You might, yeah, it looks like a great trade, right? The market moved in one direction, but at the end of the day, can I comfortably trade corn all the time if I'm going to look at it? This move was just an hour. I told you guys I cut a S&P trade because it took an hour to do anything. The one thing about corn, it was moving in my direction, but it's going to be slower, right? Are you comfortable holding on to a trade for at least a half an hour before you see some favorable price action? It might happen quicker, but the nature of these markets are going to be a lot slower. So if you're getting in and looking for, a 30-second trade, probably not the market for you. So test it out first before you expect to make any money from
uh,
it.
a good point. Two things. Look at that's where I'll go. The average true range on the daily, the half hour, 5 minute, or 3 minute. Understand what that range is in a monetary value. Also, position sizing. How
Yep.
much? Like five corn is like one mini Nasdaq. If 10 corn, that's a
Yeah,
$600 move. I think 12 cents from high to low. I mean, Nasdaq can do that, as we've witnessed in a minute sometimes, but on average, average true range, understand that, and position size. You can afford to do more than one. Um, but that's the key, is the right size position.
yep,
Um, so that's why you hear me talking about average true range. It's really key to getting the right size on. So,
100%.
soybeans might be next.
You heard it here first. You heard it here first. Yeah, we
Oh,
broke
look at
that.
that. We kept it. Yeah,
We
we
kept that
did.
trend line on there.
I I've had some calls on for that, but the 200 moving average, we're basing, and soybeans go, they're the Nasdaq of the grains. They might even
Yeah.
be more violent. They,
Yep.
um,
I traded it a couple
so
times last year, and it moves. It moves for sure. We did get one more question I want to answer. This was from the best loser wins. Great name. If you hold a corn contract and it expires, unfortunately, it does not get delivered to your house. You're probably gonna have to go pick it up. So, you got anything before we go, Coach?
it's, no, there was an old Johnny Carson did that to one to someone on his show when I was a kid. It was pork hogs,
Okay.
and he came to set it all up and went to the door, and the wife answered. We got, and he brought a truckload of hogs. Where can we deliver these, ma'am?
Oh man, what do you do?
So no, you never, unless you're an end user, and even then it gets really complicated. You're not going to, basically, if your brokerage firm is going to get not let you be in that position at expiration.
There we
Period.
go.
So don't
Yep.
worry about being delivered. Um, Also, um, trade well tomorrow. Manage your risk. Execute your plan and thrive.
There we go. I got nothing else except for the fact that we have Jim Dalton on tomorrow for all of our market profile traders. That is going to be a great conversation. Mr. Dalton is going to be on with Hoag, who we know uses market profile for all of his market analysis. That is going to be a great conversation just to get to see two people who have a shared interest in looking at the markets and how they view them. Going to be a ton to learn. So, what I do every time is shut off my charts, pull out a notebook, and just take notes. Because, I could be making some money, but there's a ton of valuable information that I'm going to get from watching those sessions that might earn me more than whatever I could earn trading for that hour. So, that's all I got. Congrats to the new VIPs. 4 more teams going to be selected this week. Coach Hoop's getting ready to do a class in 5 minutes. Coach Paul and Coach Vince will be doing classes in Discord a little bit later, 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. Central. And then, of course, Dakota tonight with slow markets
Coach Ray, not me.
at 7:30.
Coach Ray.
So, Coach Ray, sorry about that. Coach Ray and Coach Vince in Discord, 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. Dakota, 7:30 for slow markets, and Deanna tomorrow morning, 3:30 a.m. Central Time for the London Open. Thank you all for joining us. Hit that like button if you haven't done so already on the way out, and we will see you all tomorrow. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.